Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to today's Grey Market Blast. It is Monday the 21st of July all day. You join me and the glamorous with a capital G, Angie Setzer, where Angie will be providing us with a rapid update of the latest pricing flows and market moving news in agricultural markets. But before she does, and so I don't get my usual spanking, I'll get the legals out the way, so nothing discussed in the space of session constitute trading or investment advice or infers any kind of endorsement by PIQ, myself, Ryan Paisley, or indeed the magnificent Angie Setzer.
I like how it's transitioned from, so I don't get it, like you're in fear, to it's a usual one now, where you're just like, it happens.
Well, I live in hope, right? I live in hope. One day.
At least every Tuesday, maybe Thursday if you're lucky. So happy Monday. Welcome to the early grain blast. I feel so unprepared because it's 15
Yeah,
minutes.
my
What are you
fault.
going to do?
My
Yeah,
fault.
no, it's totally fine.
I'm fast marching to the train station to catch my
I
train.
was going to say, it sounded like you were walking somewhere, but I didn't
Well,
want to
because I sound out
offend.
of
So
breath.
no, you can't even tell. Not even hardly at all. So yeah, happy Monday. I started my Monday out by being the third Monday in a row of having a load get kicked out of the feed mill. Meal, apparently is how you say that now, for Weevil. So, and honestly, I now have a new movie to add as well, to my repertoire because
What do they
Ryan,
say about, what do they say?
the lesser of two evils is
There we
what they
go.
say. Yes. So I've learned things today, but I've also learned new swear words that you can put together, which is the only thing that wheat trading can really honestly do for you, in the end. So, anyway, what are we looking at here? First bullet point, and I'm going to repeat it just because I liked it so much. Like I thought of it this morning when I was getting around and kind of snickered to myself. Let's not make a deal. And so we've seen kind of, this sort of, hey, we've got pretty deals that come in, and I think I think we still have like two trade deals. We have the pause with China, which is good, and we have seen both sides, come to the table or at least kind of fulfill their portion of those duties. We saw China's rare earth magnet exports, like it was a big amount. It just really soared in June
Yeah, I think
versus. Go ahead.
June versus May, I think it's 7x.
Yeah, I was gonna say 6 or 7 times. So that was, and then I was like, wait, maybe you shouldn't say it because I went, but yeah, you're right. You confirmed it. Just a big, push in that direction. You had seen the Nvidia chips working their way, the opposite direction, though we did see this morning, like, there's a limited amount that they're allowing, to go that way or something like that. So there's a little bit of uncertainty there. But aside from that, we're seeing the EU, kind of come back and be like, well, we're preparing if this thing doesn't work out. Japan, you saw their prime minister take a hit this weekend. He lost. It was a historical election, right? In the sense that this is the first time since 1955, which was a long time ago. For those of you who are thinking 50 years, you're wrong. It's 70. But still, this happened where, basically like if the prime minister of Japan doesn't have majority in one or two houses, which this is not me being an expert. This is just me repeating what I've read today and why this is important. But basically, like to not have a prime minister with majority in Japan, is a bit of a feat in either, house or whatever they call it. In either house. And so to see their PM lose control of the upper house by like 3 positions or whatever, you've seen some far right coming in. You've seen some other things happening there. And the only reason it really matters is that Japan's been a bit more of a holdout than what the administration had expected, when it comes to negotiation. But Japan's also having some struggles when it comes to, what's going on in the country, politically, inflationary wise, like all of these other things. And so, you've got Japan, you've got the EU, South Korea's coming back for their second trip in 2 weeks. And you get Lutnick confirmed. Go ahead. Yes, please.
If I may on Japan, I
Of
think
course you can.
obviously it's a Japanese holiday today, so reactions are being muted. So everyone's just looking
Yes.
to the futures prices rather than kind of any cash markets over in the Far East. But
Yeah.
the initial reaction was bullish risk. So good for the yen, good for the Nikkei. And the reasoning people were putting behind that is because the current government, the majority they needed was 50, they got 47. But that's
Yes.
enough of a mandate to not have to go back to the complete starting point with Trump.
Yes. So that's good enough then. So that's positive. So it was bad, but not as bad as it could be, kind of is the way it sounds in
Yeah,
that regard.
perfect. And sorry, I've
So
just walked up some stairs, so now I am breathing out my
no,
eyes.
you're really, he's like, hold on a minute. The cider from last night is returning for a second. But no, so that's what, we'll be paying attention on that just simply because we're not really having folks line up and come up with these deals. You did see, I think it was Lutnick this morning confirm August 1st. We had heard at the end of the week last week, it was like August 12th or whatever. And I think that there's just some confusion on deadlines. The administration, again, kind of deja vu all over again, like we were in June where it was like, no, July, whatever day. I don't even remember anymore what the hard deadline was, 8th. And now it's August 1st and then, we'll see kind of from there. But one thing that I did think was interesting, and this has kind of been a point that I've been bringing up for a while and something that I don't think a lot of folks have kind of had on their bingo card, for lack of a better term, is I think the IMF ran a couple of scenarios here, or as recently there was a group that had run a couple scenarios here on what if these countries don't retaliate? What if they just take the tariffs, they turn the other cheek, they say, okay, this really is going to be over with in a year or two, maybe 3. And, we just kind of say, okay, well, thank you very much. And we work to build trade with other people. So you see the rest of the world kind of say, okay, thanks. President Trump, will take these tariffs and we're going to work to kind of do what we need to do, and just kind of take this in stride. And basically like the IMF scenario, it looks like the rest of the world would just kind of see growth. It'd be slower growth than what you would see if we'd all just kumbaya and work together. But the rest of the world would kind of see growth and the US would be left to kind of sit here and maybe be a little sad or whatever,
Do you know what? I think that's a very important point and a very important kind of gamification of it all. That it's possible
Yes.
that could happen. But one important thing to remember is Trump needs attention, and I think
Yes.
if a country came back like in this scenario and said, okay, yeah, no, fine, you want to give us 25% tariffs, yeah, fine, we'll wear it, but we're not giving anything back to you.
Yes.
If they just did that and said, yeah, we'll see you next year at the G7 or whatever, Trump will lose his mind.
Oh my
He will
God, I
lose his
know.
mind.
It's like, I don't want to compare, like, please don't get all like this is political or whatever, but like, someone throws a tantrum, you ignore them, which honestly makes it worse. Like that's my, favorite thing
Yeah.
to do. But it is of interest. Like I just mute, like, oh, this person doesn't like me, I'm going to mute them. I'm never going to give them the satisfaction of blocking them. I'm just going to pretend like I can't
Yeah.
hear you. Who are you? You don't exist. I have ADHD and object permanence issues. But anyway, back to the like we've got to just kind of watch and see because it is interesting, and like we've talked about with Japan, like a lot of people have been really worried. Oh, well, if Trump puts tariffs on Mexico or South Korea or Japan, they're going to tariff, corn imports or they're going to do this, that, or the other thing. Probably not. Honestly, like especially these countries that are dealing with inflationary pressure and some of these other things, they're probably not going to cut their nose off where they spike their,
No, exactly, because
cut their
they are
nose off to
literally
spite
just
their face.
because they're harming themselves because they know it all gets
Yes.
passed through to their domestic consumer, which is a
Yes.
point that I don't think Trump is really kind of clocked on yet to. But
That's because it
as he
doesn't
said at the
happen that
weekend,
way here. It's fine.
nobody
Yeah.
explains stuff to him. He's the one
He's
that
the
does the
explainer.
explaining. Yeah,
Which
that's
was
it.
interesting. So was it Basent that said on that, like
Yeah,
side note, sidebar, was it Basent that said he had explained to Trump or was that just a source
yeah,
saying that about
yeah.
Basent?
Well, I've
Because
read it
that's a
as
huge
yeah,
difference,
I
right?
read it
Like,
as that's a good point actually. The way I read it was a percent that said I
oh
explained
my.
it to Trump. So just for anyone that wasn't aware, obviously we heard back end of last week about Trump being caught waving a bit of paper in the air saying this is how I fired Powell. That came out, I think it was on Friday or Thursday. We saw the really negative market reaction, so much so that Trump had to come out and say, I don't know what they're on about. There was no
Yeah.
piece of paper. I didn't wave it. Those 8 people that saw me, they're obviously all making it up. Obviously it did happen, but obviously he walked it back pretty sharpish because of the market reaction. He's now
Yes.
claiming that all along he knew that would be the market reaction if he did get rid of Powell. So anyway, this is why I think another reason why the whole Trump getting rid of Powell, I think I've never really thought that's possible.
No.
I'm even more convinced that
Oh, we lost.
he recognizes though they might just now go, oh fuck it, do you know what? I don't need all this.
Yeah.
I don't mind about being sidelined.
Yeah. That's what, I mean, if I were Paul, I think I might just be like, okay, bye. Like, you know how much
Yeah.
lucrative speaking engagements
Oh
I
my
have on the
god,
other
yeah.
side
We'll
of
get
this?
him on here.
That's just it. I like hundreds of thousands. Oh, here it'd be hundreds of pennies, hundreds upon hundreds of pennies. But anyway, it's one of those things that, we'll be watching. Like all of these factors at play, like we've got this deadline. It's 3 weeks out, right? 4 weeks out, whatever. 2 weeks actually, cause it's August 1st and I don't know how we're July 21st. But it'll be one of those things that we're watching, pay attention to. But this idea that the U.S., is going to really kind of, or that the whole entire world order is going to disintegrate, I'm not really sure. I think the rest of the world's kind of like, okay, charge your consumers 30% extra on our tariffs. Now, one of the things, or on our products, excuse me. One of the things that's super interesting, kind of leading over into talking about tariffs, and one of the things that we have to be watching, is we do have the Russia-Ukraine situation still. Russia is pushing their attacks further west into Ukraine. You've got talks of another round of peace talks, or rumors of another round of peace talks. It's probably just going to be more to do with passing over of, casualties of war and some of these other things like we've seen here recently. One of the things that caught my attention this morning, there was an article, I think it was in Bloomberg, but PIQ shared it. So it's just one of those, of course they would. But when it comes down to it, there was some conversation about these countries that are importing Russian fertilizer, and what these secondary sanctions would mean. Because the Trump administration had said if we don't see something happen here, with the with the peace talks, if we don't see progress in 50 days, we're going to start putting on these 100% secondary tariffs. Okay, well, Brazil imports like a third of their fertilizer, I believe, from a third of their fertilizer from Russia. You've got China, India, and a handful of others that are big fertilizer importers. What does this look like? Because basically you're looking at in 2 months is right at the start of the South American growing season. And if we see their fertilizer costs double, you're already struggling with really, really poor margins down that way. Like you're already looking at, we did a interview with Eduardo last week. He's talking about expectations of relatively stagnant to limited growth in the year ahead, and the potential if things were to stay this bad margin wise, you could actually see them start to go backwards with some of these growers because they're losing, they're just losing so much money. No one wants to do this. It's unsustainable, even in Brazil. And so we will be watching what that would look like. If you start to see the cost of fertilizer spike around the world, you already have a grower that is, unable to make money just about everywhere. I've said it a million times. Like once you get to where you can buy it on the board cheaper than you can grow it, it's unsustainable. And so if we continue to talk about raising the costs of food production, just about everywhere, especially if we sanction Russia and some of this other stuff, that could be interesting. But it does look like, Russia is not really working its way towards peace anytime soon. Like I said, they're pushing further west. There's a lot of stuff going on production wise there. There's a lack of grain movement out of the area that's really got some folks puzzled, out of Russia especially. And so there's a lot of things that we'll be paying attention to in that regard. So we're 15 minutes in. You got to get on a train. But there's a lot to be watching. Obviously, just kind of too long, didn't read version of all of the things that you need to be paying attention to. Weather-wise, it does look like after this initial heat wave that we're going to get here over the next few days, you will see it cool off again. Most models are pointing towards cooler temperatures, July 31st through like August 2nd, 3rd, 4th, right there. But then if you look at the CPC and some of these others, they're calling for heat to build back in on the back end of that. So we'll be watching really closely. Right now the heat is not great, though it does look accompanied with some moisture. We're watching the rest of the world too. But nothing really glaring stands out from a weather standpoint. So we had export inspections this morning, crop progress, all of that good stuff. And yeah, happy Monday.
Wonderful. Well, again, I apologise for having to bring this forward by 15 minutes, but
you're fine.
Thank you. As long as you don't mind, that's all I care about, really.
I don't mind. Yeah, the rest of them don't mind either. They're happy to be here.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, Angie, thank you again for being awesome. Again, please do watch Master and Commander. It's an amazing film, and once you've done, then we've got something else to talk about.
Right.
But listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. We really do appreciate you, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Much love.
Have a good one, guys.